Hey guys, this is Tyler here. It is October 8th, and I'm just going to explain to everyone why being a digital nomad is perfect for a younger MGTOW guy. I've been living in Europe now for almost 2 years, and in this time I've been doing most of my work via internet. I have a couple jobs that I do. I own a business, and I do a couple other things. What I noticed often is that the more remote a job is, the more ideal it is if you're a MGTOW type of guy. It just makes life a lot easier. You'll be able to manage your day-to-day affairs easier, and it's just tends to be less stressful. I brought this up in previous videos about the fact that I'm a day trader, and I can day trade basically wherever I want in the world. As long as you have a computer and you have good Wi-Fi, you can pretty much trade wherever. That isn't to say, though, that you definitely want to have the right technology and hardware to maximize your returns as a trader. But you can work from home. That's the main thing. You don't have to be in an office. And I think this is one of the big reasons why digital nomad lifestyle is perfect if you're a MGTOW guy. And firstly, many MGTOW guys, of course, want to get out of their home countries, often being from Western countries that tend to have a lot of stifling aspects of society, such as taxes, social norms, overall culture, and just the vibe. People often prefer something different, and this is where being a digital nomad enables someone to have more flexibility and freedom. But with that being said, you still have to have a game plan. You need to have the right plan and action, because if you don't, you may try to start this lifestyle as a digital nomad. It may not work out if you already haven't been making money from it previously. And so that's one of the key things here, is understand you really want to start already making money from it before you leave your country, if that's what you end up doing. Whether it's to relocate, it's to travel, you really should try to at least have half the income generated from your digital nomad job that you would need to survive in that other country that you're moving to. That would be the best tip of advice I could give people out there that are new to this. Being a digital nomad, of course, means you have many options and you're flexible with the countries you can live and the lifestyle that you can live. You're not as constrained, and you can certainly move around. I also have known of digital nomads that, for example, they have a property, apartment, home back in their home country, and they simply rent it out. They generate some income from that, and then they maybe have a side job like English teacher, or they do some handyman work, contract work in a foreign country, and make the other source of their income. There's many different scenarios here where guys are able to kind of supplement their income. They're able to live the life that they want to live. It's also very pleasant because you often don't have to be in an office around annoying coworkers, if that's for you how your personality is. Because some people, no matter what, they find most coworkers annoying to be around and unpleasant. Other people like the social environment and would actually prefer to be at work. The overall gains from being at work are more than the negative, but other people, it's the opposite. And I think, for example, many software engineers and programmers and back-end developers tend to be the kind of people where they don't often like being in these office environments as much, or they prefer being in a certain type of office environment that caters to this particular community. And just general office environments often, though, these people aren't as big of a fan of. And that's where I think one of the big reasons why many digital nomads tend to work in IT area, software engineering, they're developers, all sorts of IT positions. You'll find it's very, very common to find these kind of people as digital nomads. Often companies also enable these people to work from home, to work wherever they're living. They may only have to come into the office a few times a year. So some of these companies actually prefer it because it saves money not having to have such big offices and all the expenses that come with that for these companies. There's many different types of jobs you can do. You may have to be a little more creative though here, because what you'll find also is like a lot of people in artistic areas tend to like this kind of digital nomad lifestyle. Yeah, it's often common for artists to live this way. I actually knew a guy in Chicago. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. He was from Austria. He was like 29 when I met him, and he was an artist. I believe he was a sculptor. He was from Austria, and he basically lived for like a couple years in different places around the world. And at that time, it was around 2015, he was living in Chicago. And he was like a sculptor of some kind, and he was sufficiently known that he was actually able to make a pretty good income, and he just simply lived in different cities around the world because he was an artist, and those skills you take with you. And so that's one of the big keys here. If you're like this, you really want to focus on skills that are very transferable. And that's why you don't focus as much on the position, but the skills that you can go from place to place and do and execute just as you would anywhere else. That's one of the big lessons here. In this situation also, if you're able to acquire like an alternative residency, second residency, perhaps even a passport, if you marry someone in that country, you could then obviously optimize your tax situation to create a better tax return as a resident of this country. You can obviously open offshore bank accounts. Perhaps if you like a country enough, or multiple countries, and you become sufficiently successful, you could perhaps even renounce the citizenship of your home country. We saw this with the famous Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalists, a well-known American from Ohio, and he renounced U.S. citizenship a few years ago. He built up such an amount of success, basically with a digital-based brand he was running abroad, that he was then able to renounce his U.S. citizenship, and I believe he has now like 5 passports in different countries. So there's many situations here. You'd be surprised at what you can create out of this. Now, some MGTOW guys may be like asking, well, I don't work in an area where I can transfer these skills, or it's very difficult to do this. Always understand that there's probably a digital area scope with the skills that you have. Typically in almost any situation, these skills can be translated to the internet or online. Example is like a teacher. I remember this famous duo. It was a couple. It was, I think, 7 years ago I read this story from CNN or CNBC. And the couple were teachers, and what they did is they actually started creating elementary courses for people becoming teachers, and basically how to be better teachers, and then they sold them online. These guys were way ahead of the curve on this. This was probably 10 or 11 years ago they did this, and they ended up making lots and lots of money from it, and actually became millionaires. And so they were actually able to stop being teachers and could just live as these digital nomads, business people. Even though they were teachers, remember, it's often more valuable to have actual specific skill sets. Somehow transfer these specific skills, this niche, onto the internet. This is actually often more valuable than just being, say, a general business person. Another example is in the legal area, people who are attorneys. People may say, oh, this JD doesn't translate to other countries. Countries have different types of law, systems of law, and they may need qualifications in these countries. Well, there's many needs in legal areas, especially nowadays. And there's more and more niche websites, there's apps, there's all sorts of guides that are being created in areas that attorneys understand. People need attorneys for these areas. It's a scope of knowledge that a common person cannot do on their own. And this is where these websites come into play. And this is certainly an option for an attorney. Has these skill sets, they can create some kind of business online in the legal realm. Even for guys who are former military guys, many guys, former military guys, officers or enlisted, I've personally known of, actually become second residents in other countries from the US. It seems very unusual. You would think that they would be extremely patriotic and would want to just stay at home, but many of them actually become kind of discontented after serving and want to live somewhere else. And so these guys, one thing about the U.S. military is people learn all sorts of skill sets in the military. And so you'll see guys that they create YouTube brands, or they create brands via YouTube. Maybe it's in nutrition, fitness that's necessary for the military. They maybe begin as vloggers, military vloggers, and then they transition over into another field. Of course, there's like other skills that the military needs, like logistics, supply chain, or medical areas, industrial, civil engineers, all sorts of different areas. And these guys also tend to be very good at finding niches outside of the military to create businesses from, and are able to be successful outside the scope of the military and live abroad. There's many examples here where people are able to translate these skills over into something that's digital, that's online based, and enables them to become a digital nomad. Often too, MGTOW guys aren't as big into long-term relationships, not always, but often, definitely not marriages. And this is also very optimal for a digital nomad, that you can move from country to country. You could have short-term relationships in each of these countries. Or you could do it like how nomad capitalist Andrew Henderson does it, and utilize this trifecta method and basically have bases in like 3 different countries and just rotate and move from each place every 4 months and simply live in each place. And perhaps you'll find a spouse abroad in the country that you're living. And then with the spouse, you can travel to each country like 3 times a year. A great way to keep everything fresh and just to stay motivated, because you won't get as tired of living in the one place for too long. And this is where I think it's really ideal for a more MGTOW person. The other area too is that as a digital nomad, you can choose when and where and how you want to travel when you do. So if you're the kind of person that likes to spend a lot of time with family and friends, especially family, you'll have flexibility and freedom to be like, okay, I want to see my family in a month or 2 months, and you could travel to that country and visit those people, visit your family. Maybe it's around Christmas time, you can visit for a few weeks, stay with them and enjoy yourself. Or if you have a home base like in a foreign country, you say you have a home in Malaysia, or you have a home in Ukraine, or wherever it is, you can actually invite these people to come visit you. You can have family come and stay with you, especially if you have a nice home, a house. They can certainly stay with you and make a vacation of this situation. So it actually is kind of a win-win situation also for these people. And this is a really cool thing about being digital nomad. For especially the guys that are in Latin America or Southeast Asia, it's probably not going to be too difficult to convince people to visit you for a vacation, because these tend to be very ideal places to visit. Another big benefit by getting all this variety as a digital nomad, you can decide as a MGTOW guy or person what you like the best, what place works for the kind of person you are. And you may realize you don't like a certain country, you don't like a city, and can basically X that off in the future, that you wouldn't want to live there long term. You'll have gotten used to and experienced so many countries and places with this kind of lifestyle that you'll know eventually what country would be most suitable for you long term, and then reside in that country, or have multiple countries to reside in. There's different ways to approach it. The main idea here is that being a digital nomad is very beneficial for anyone, especially for a MGTOW guy. So it may be a good solution for you, and if it is, check out a few countries and see what works. Give me your feedback below, and thank you.